Welcome back to the deep dive. This is the show really engineered for you, the curious learner, the person who wants knowledge fast but also wants it thoroughly, who really values getting different angles on things and loves those aha moments, but, without getting totally buried in information. We get that your time is valuable. So what we do is we grab a whole stack of sources, articles, research, our own notes, and we pull out the absolute key bits of knowledge, the real insights. It's basically a shortcut to feeling genuinely well-informed. And today, we are plunging into a world just brimming with magic, fierce heroines, those complex, morally gray love interests, and stories that, well, they undeniably swept readers off their feet in 2023 and just took them somewhere else entirely. Our main source for this deep dive, it comes from this absolutely fantastic community, a real hub for book lovers, Hooked to Books. Specifically, we're unpacking their really insightful list, top 10 romance books of 2023, fantastical love stories that took us elsewhere. So our mission today is to really explore this captivating world of romantasy, that thrilling sweet spot where romance meets fantasy. And we want to understand why these specific books hit so hard with readers last year. Why these stories? Why did they capture hearts, spark endless online discussions, and leave such a big impression? That's what we're diving deep into. Now, for those of you who maybe aren't as familiar with Hooked to Books, our source here, it's way more than just like a website. It's this really vibrant, super dedicated community for book lovers, especially those who, get really passionate about romance or fantasy or that perfect blend of the two. Think of it as your ultimate destination for really thorough book reviews, detailed reading guides, the kind that actually help you find your way in these complex new worlds, and just engaging chats about the stories that grab you. Their online place, hookedtobooks.com, it's just packed. Extensive reading resources, great book club guides, and it really nurtures this community of readers who, honestly, much like us, share this intense, sometimes delightfully obsessive passion for fictional love interests. It's where that shared buzz for a character or, a specific romantic trope really sparks and actually starts shaping what people read next.
Yeah, it's really fascinating, actually, to see how crucial a community like Hooked to Books is in shaping today's reading trends. It's not just, as you said, a place to find reviews. It's an active space. It's dynamic. It's where these shared obsessions get amplified, right? Where recommendations spread like wildfire through these passionate talks. And you can almost feel this collective yearning for certain kinds of stories. It becomes really palpable. And that energy, that collective buzz, it feeds back into what gets popular. It influences individual readers, sure, but potentially also publishers, authors, maybe guiding what they decide to pick up or even write next. It really shows the power of a focused, passionate community in, our very connected world.
That dynamic is absolutely spot on, and it's key to understanding 2023 because that year felt like a real turning point for romantasy. Here's where it gets really compelling. The genre didn't just grow steadily, it exploded. An extraordinary surge in popularity. It honestly felt like a love letter to everyone who believed the best romance stories need a good dose of magic. We saw platforms like Book Talk, that huge book-loving corner of TikTok where people share reactions, quick takes. They became these massive engines for discovery. They push specific subgenres and tropes into the spotlight like never before. I mean, think about it. Sittingly, everyone is talking about dragon riders, right? Characters forging these deep bonds with dragons soaring through the skies. And the pull of fae courts, these intricate, often dangerous magical realms, so alluring. And then, the morally gray love interests. These complex, sometimes dangerous characters who had us all questioning, what makes a hero. We were rooting for people with, let's be honest, questionable ethics, but undeniable charm and deep inner conflict. And don't even get me started on the addiction to slow burns, those amazing drawn-out romances where the tension just builds and builds, keeping us up way past our bedtime, promising just one more chapter until, oops, the sun's coming up.
Right, and expanding on that, this huge embrace of romantasy really points to a deep-seated need for escapism. It resonates with so many readers right now in a world that, let's face it, often feels too heavy, too real. These books offer a vital escape hatch. They remind us love isn't just, paying bills together. It can be epic. It can involve literal life or death stakes, desperate sword fights, these unbreakable magic bonds, ancient prophecies. The source highlights how the most swoon-worthy romances often happen right in the middle of all that chaos. Which does raise a pretty important question, doesn't it? What societal factors are feeding this craving for fantastical escapism right now? Is it maybe a desire for clearer good versus evil in a world that feels increasingly gray? Or perhaps it's a yearning for stories where, individual choices and epic love can genuinely change the world, giving us a sense of agency that maybe feels lacking day to day. These stories definitely provide a sense of grand purpose and intense connection that's just different from the ordinary.
Those are incredibly insightful points. Really frames the bigger picture of why these stories appeal so much. And it's with that background that we can really appreciate the specific books that made 2023 feel so magical for romance readers, the ones pushing those boundaries of epic love and escape. Okay, let's dive into this top 10 list. Let's unpack what made these particular stories just so unforgettable, starting our journey at number 10. Kicking us off, number 10, Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. The premise here is just wonderful and quite unique. We follow Emily Wilde. She's this brilliant scholar, totally dedicated to meticulously studying fairies. And in her quest for knowledge, she bumps into her academic rival, this guy Wendell. Cue the delightful clash of personalities and wits. The source calls this book an absolute gem that really snuck up on readers. It sort of presents itself initially as this cozy academic fantasy, and it delivers that charm for sure, but the romance, and this is key, it blooms so naturally, almost subtly. It just gradually takes center stage. Emily herself is painted as this prickly, brilliant woman, way more at home with research than, people. And watching her emotional walls slowly crumble throughout the story. The source describes that as a total chef's kiss moment, peak emotional satisfaction for readers who love that subtle, earned character growth. The magic system is fascinating, too. It's really rooted in folklore, traditional fairy tale logic, which makes it feel both familiar and somehow completely unpredictable. You think you know the rules, then bam, they twist in these cool, unexpected ways. And then there's Wendell. The source really emphasizes how this character, whatever his deal is, just grabs readers from his very first dramatic entrance. Adds this layer of intrigue right away. Their dynamic is classic grumpy sunshine, right? That lovely trope where a serious character, Wendell, is balanced by a more cheerful one, Emily, in her own curious way. But here, it's got this academic, intellectual spin. As for the heat level, the source rates it sweet with a hint of spice like a perfectly balanced chai latte. Perfect, right. So it's ideal for anyone who loves academic settings, who really savors a slow burn romance where the anticipation is everything, and especially those who enjoy witty banter and intellectual sparring as like a form of courtship, where sharp minds are just as attractive as anything else.
Yes, and what's really insightful there is how that grumpy sunshine trope, which we often see in, say, contemporary rom-coms, is so brilliantly adapted into this academic fantasy setting. That plus the intellectual sparring, it just offers a really unique take on romance within the genre. It puts the emphasis squarely on character development over maybe immediate passion. It lets that emotional connection build really organically through their shared work, mutual respect, and that slow understanding of each other's vulnerabilities. It's kind of a compelling subversion of the more typical action-first romantasy. It goes for a more cerebral feel, which show that the slow blossoming of deep feelings can be just as gripping, maybe even more so, when it's rooted in that mental connection and shared curiosity. This slower unraveling lets you really appreciate their internal worlds and how they grow as individuals.
Okay, moving from that cozy face scholarship, we leap into a totally different kind of magic with number 9. Witch King by Martha Wells. Now, this book is a bit of a departure for Martha Wells fans, right? She's hugely famous for the Murderbot series, known for its, quirky, introverted security unit protagonist. But with Witch King, she delivered this really complex, layered fantasy. It weaves together intricate political intrigue with genuinely heartwarming found family themes. That trope where characters choose their family, forming these incredibly loyal bonds. Our main character is Kai. He's a powerful demon, bound to help mortals, and the story cleverly unfolds across 2 different timelines. And these timelines slowly, meticulously reveal this deep conspiracy threatening everything he cares about. Now, the source admits Martha Wells isn't typically known for being, quote, romance-forward in the usual sense, and Witch King doesn't really lead with overt passion, so it makes you ask, what exactly counts as romance and fantasy, especially for a list focused on it?
That's a great question.
Right. Because the relationships in this book, especially the main bond between Kai and Zeta, they're highlighted as beautifully developed and just incredibly emotionally resonant. Apparently to the point of making readers cry. This bond spans centuries, signifying this enduring, almost unbreakable devotion.
Wow, centuries.
Exactly. And the source really nails it when they say this book made them realize that the most powerful love stories aren't about the passion, they're about the choosing. It's about consciously choosing to stand by someone, fight for them, build a life against impossible odds, that deep, sustained commitment, the spicy sweet rating, described as complex and layered like a really good aged whiskey. So it's perfect for readers who love intricate world building, morally complex characters, and these sweeping love stories that develop over huge stretches of time, proving that deep connection can be a powerful anchor, even if it's not the main plot driver.
What's really fascinating there is how the source is actively broadening our definition of a love story. It's suggesting it can be something beyond convention. It implies that romantic depth isn't just about explicit passion or that initial spark. It can be profoundly rooted in themes like enduring loyalty, sacrifice, and that deliberate ongoing choice to commit, even when there isn't a direct romantic plot pushing things forward. If we broaden our view, this suggests readers are increasingly valuing that emotional resonance and thematic depth in relationships, even when they're not the primary genre focus. It points to a more nuanced understanding of romance, that it can be this powerful undercurrent, supporting characters through huge challenges, providing that core emotional anchor. It shows love stories can span centuries and be incredibly moving without needing to be overtly spicy. It speaks to a deeper appreciation for the foundations of a lasting bond.
Okay, continuing up the list, number 8 brings us A Court This Cruel and Lovely by Stacia Stark. The premise grabs you right away. We meet Leah. She's been hiding her magic her whole life, a secret that could literally get her killed. But then circumstances force her to flee her village, pushing her onto this desperate quest. And the fate of her entire kingdom hangs in the balance. Will it be saved or totally destroyed? And naturally, it wouldn't be proper romantasy without a brooding, mysterious companion who, of course, makes everything way more complicated for Leah as their paths cross. The source mentioned this book absolutely dominated their reading month when it came out. That says a lot about its immediate hook. So if you're after those quintessential classic romantasy vibes, apparently this book is a masterclass. It hits so many of those tropes readers adore, the ones that have become hallmarks of the genre. You've got the chosen one narrative, our protagonist destined for greatness. You've got that exquisite slow burn romance keeping you on the edge of your seat. Agonizing over every little glance.
Oh, yeah, the best kind of agony.
Totally. And of course, the morally gray love interest, alluring, powerful, definitely hiding secrets that are going to mess everything up. The source admits they kind of expected it to feel derivative because these tropes are so popular. But credit to the author, Stacia Stark apparently brings enough originality to feel fresh. It doesn't just feel like a checklist. It has a fascinating magic system, solid world building that feels immersive, and crucially, this palpable chemistry between Leah and her mysterious guy. The reviewer was apparently highlighting passages constantly. That chemistry, described as building heat like a slow-simmering pot that's about to boil over, makes it perfect for those seeking traditional romantasy done really well. Perfect for slow-burn lovers and anyone who enjoys a magical quest tangled up with intense, undeniable romance.
This book, A Court This Cruel and Lovely, it's a brilliant example of the enduring appeal of tropes when they're executed really well. Even in a genre that's always looking for the next new thing, it shows that readers don't always need something completely groundbreaking. Sometimes what they crave is the comfort and the deep satisfaction of familiar story beats, as long as they're delivered with real skill and genuine passion. Which raises an important question for authors in this space, doesn't it? How do you balance that comforting familiarity of established tropes with just enough freshness to keep readers engaged? How do you stop it feeling stale? It's a real balancing act, giving readers what they expect, but also surprising them in meaningful ways. And clearly this book hit that sweet spot. It shows that masterful execution can make even common structures feel special and really sought after.
All right, at number 7, we've got Immortal Longings by Gong. Wow, this sounds like a total mind-bender. Genre-fusing, boundary-pushing stuff. The core idea is a sci-fi dystopian retelling of Antony and Cleopatra. But get this, with a totally unique twist. The characters, Kayla and Anton, they compete in these deadly body-hopping games. It's set in this fantastical city where people can literally jump between bodies, shedding identities like clothes. The source says Gong basically went, okay, Antony and Cleopatra, but make it sci-fi dystopian with body-hopping. And the result, brutal and beautiful and absolutely unforgettable. Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, conceptually and emotionally. The romance is described as desperate and fierce, but it's incredibly complicated because the characters are, and I quote, literally in different bodies half the time.
Whoa. That messes with your head.
Right. It forces you to rethink what connection even means. It's described as this wild mix of Shakespeare meets dystopian future meets the most intense enemies to lovers imaginable. The stakes aren't just personal, they're existential. Apparently this book had such a grip that the source's host actually canceled plans just to finish the last 100 pages. That's commitment.
That's the sign of a good book.
Totally. It's praised for gorgeous writing, wild world building, innovative and terrifying, and a romance that makes readers question everything you thought you knew about love and identity. Chloe Gong's writing itself is specifically called out as chef's kiss, impeccable craft, maximum impact. This novel, with its burning intensity like touching a live wire, is perfect for readers who love Shakespeare retellings, crave those deep dystopian settings, and are drawn to romance that's as dangerous and intellectually challenging as it is passionate. It really makes you think, doesn't it? That concept of identity. When love persists beyond physical bodies, shifting with each new vessel, how does that hit our modern ideas about relationships, especially with identity being so fluid now?
That is precisely what's so profoundly fascinating here. That bold exploration of identity and how it plays with love. In a world where we're already grappling with fluid concepts of self, online personas versus real-world selves, this book is like a powerful thought experiment. If love can exist, even thrive, when characters are literally swapping bodies, does that challenge our basic assumptions about the physical versus the essential self in a relationship? Broadening the perspective, it resonates because it pushes the boundaries of what love can be. It forces us to consider connection beyond just physical form or societal norms. It raises this important question: does the idea of love enduring despite constant physical change tap into a deeper human desire? A desire for connection that sees past the superficial, finding kinship in spirit or shared experience or just profound intention, rather than only physical presence. It's a really compelling narrative on how love can adapt and survive, even when the core of self is in flux. And that's a potent message for readers today.
Next up, number 6 is One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. The premise just grabs you with this dark, gothic allure. Our protagonist, Elspeth, is desperately looking for a cure for this dark, sinister magic that's slowly consuming her from within. This dangerous quest leads her to team up with the mysterious, brooding Raven Yu. And in doing so, she has to delve into this deadly magic system described as both beautiful and inherently perilous. The book apparently comes loaded with creepy magic, morally gray characters, a compelling mystery that kept the reviewer guessing, and crucially, a romance that builds with, quote, perfect tension. The world Rachel Gillig built is incredibly atmospheric. It's a place where magic comes with a price, and it seems like every character is hiding secrets that could just blow everything apart. The source highlights how well this book explores complex ideas like power and corruption. Elspeth isn't just fighting external monsters, she's fighting an internal darkness. She's learning that sometimes you have to embrace the shadows to find the light. That sounds like a powerful journey of self-acceptance.
Definitely.
And Raven. He's the absolute epitome of that delicious, brooding love interest energy, but in all the best ways, adding that constant, crackling tension to every interaction. This novel, rated as dark chocolate, bitter and sweet with hidden depths, makes it perfect for anyone who loves gothic vibes, complex magical mysteries, and heroes who aren't afraid to navigate darkness, finding connection even when things look bleakest.
Yeah, what's really compelling there is that nuanced exploration of internal conflict and redemption, especially within a dark fantasy framework. Elspeth wrestling with her own darkness, and Raven being so morally ambiguous. It doesn't just add surface complexity, it significantly ramps up the romantic tension. The appeal of these morally gray characters often lies in their unpredictability, right? Their actions, their emotions. It makes building trust and love feel incredibly hard-won, and therefore much more meaningful when it happens. Which brings up an important question. How do these shades of gray in characterization actually deepen the thematic exploration of power, corruption, and ultimately love, compared to more straightforward hero stories? It suggests readers are increasingly drawn to that messiness, that realism of human nature, even wrapped in fantasy, because it mirrors the complexities we see in real life, making the triumph of love against those odds feel even more powerful and resonant.
Coming in hot at number 5, we have The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. Okay, the premise here sounds tantalizingly dark and action-packed. We've got vampires, we've got deadly competitions, and a human girl who has to prove she belongs and can survive in this brutal, immortal world. Our protagonist, Araya, she was adopted by the powerful king of the House of Night. But she's still human in a world full of dangerous vampires. When she's forced into this deadly tournament, the Kajari described as a brutal test of survival and strategy, she ends up relying on Rain. He's this complex, mysterious vampire who is definitely more than he seems. Their alliance, born out of pure necessity to survive, slowly evolves into something much deeper, much more complicated, challenging their loyalties. The source just raves about this one, saying it took the vampire romance genre and elevated it to something absolutely spectacular.
High praise.
Right. It revitalizes a classic trope with fresh high stakes. The character development is apparently incredible. Araya transforms from this sheltered girl into a fierce, determined woman fighting for her survival and beliefs. And Rain. He's portrayed as complex and damaged and absolutely perfect in his flaws. Irresistible, basically. Their banter alone was apparently highlight-worthy, signaling sharp dialogue, and their slow-burn romance was so addictive it kept the reviewer up way too late, completely hooked. The spicy sweet rating. Dangerously addictive like the best dark chocolate with sea salt suggests that compelling blend of temptation and depth. So this book is perfect for vampire romance lovers, fans of enemies to lovers, and anyone who loves fierce heroines rising to meet insane challenges. What do you think makes this particular take on vampire romance with the competition and complex characters so captivating now? It's clearly hitting different.
I think what's really compelling here is how the author takes those familiar vampire elements, but injects them with new life through that high-stakes competition. It doesn't just raise the stakes for the enemies to lovers dynamic, it puts them in this intense survival pressure cooker. Their alliance isn't just about attraction, it's born from desperation, forcing them to rely on each other despite hostility or massive differences. And that crucible of conflict, it really intensifies the slow burn. It makes the eventual romance feel incredibly earned, like this profound connection forged in literal fire. Plus, Araya's character arc, shedding her sheltered past, becoming fierce, that's a deeply relatable journey of empowerment. Her growth, combined with Rain's complexity, it resonates because it's not just about falling in love. It's about navigating treachery and finding strengths, maybe even redemption, in their connection. It really shows how even established tropes can feel fresh with strong character arcs and compelling conflicts that kind of mirror real-world pressures.
Okay, now for number 4, we have Book Lovers by Emily Henry. And I know what some of you are thinking, wait, this isn't fantasy, and you're totally right. The source explicitly says this is not fantasy, but they firmly believe Emily Henry just belongs on every romance list because she writes contemporary romance with a depth and emotional punch that kind of transcends genre. The premise. Nora Stevens, she's this sharp, driven literary agent. She keeps running into Charlie Lustra, a famously grumpy editor in this small town in North Carolina, and it leads to this absolutely perfect enemies to lovers romance that unfolds with so much wit and charm. This book, yeah, no dragons, no magic, but it apparently triggers incredibly strong emotions, made readers laugh out loud and cry actual tears, sometimes on the same page.
That's the Emily Henry effect.
Exactly. She has this undeniable gift for creating characters who feel so real, flawed, and human and lovable, instantly relatable. The romance between Nora and Charlie, it's built on mutual respect and understanding. It feels mature, satisfying. Watching them get together was described as pure joy. Plus, the source calls this book a genuine love letter to romance readers everywhere. It cleverly plays with all those tropes we know and love, the small-town heroines, the big-city career women. But it does it in these delightful, subversive ways. It's meta, but not pretentious. Just a beautiful celebration of the kinds of stories that give us so much joy and escape. Its rating is perfect balance, like the ideal cup of coffee, comforting yet invigorating, so obviously perfect for contemporary romance fans, enemies to lovers devotees, and any book lover who enjoys stories that celebrate loving books.
Broadening the perspective here, its inclusion on a list focused on romantasy, even though it's contemporary, really highlights how fluid reader preferences are, and how a book's theme or its emotional resonance can totally transcend strict genre lines. What's really compelling is how the source points to its love letter to romance readers, quality as key to its appeal. It suggests readers aren't just drawn to literal fantasy elements, but to stories that get the experience of being a romance reader. The tropes, the emotional payoff, the escape found in deep character connection. Which implies that the core appeal of what we're calling romantasy might be less about the magic itself and more about those larger-than-life emotional stakes and deeply satisfying character journeys, which clearly can also be found in exceptionally well-written contemporary romance. It's about the feeling, not just the label.
Okay, moving up to number 3, we have Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. This was, as the source puts it, the hugely anticipated sequel to Fourth Wing, and the pressure on Yaros must have been absolutely immense to live up to that first book's phenomenon.
Insane pressure.
Right. But the source confidently says she absolutely nailed it. Iron Flame somehow managed to exceed every expectation. It continues Violet and Azaden's story, throwing them into new threats in their war-torn world, bringing in more incredible dragons, and deepening their already complicated relationship. Apparently, she masterfully expanded the world, deepened the relationships, and just delivered more of that incredibly addictive Dragon Rider fantasy that made Fourth Wing explode. The romance between Violet and Azaden gets more complex here. It moves beyond just the initial sparks to emphasize things like trust, communication, and working together as partners. Their bond evolves into something more mature, more resilient. Plus, the dragon bonds are described as absolutely gorgeous, showing those deep telepathic connections. And the found family elements, those chosen loyalties, they really warm your heart, adding layers of belonging. The rating, addictive fire, like the perfect bonfire on a cold night, promises both consuming passion and comfort, so it's perfect for anyone devoted to Fourth Wing, dragon lovers, fans of military academy fantasy. Its success really makes you think, what does it take for a sequel in a massively popular genre to succeed like that? It seems she understood the magic of the first and just brilliantly built on it. Growth and evolution were key.
Absolutely. What's truly fascinating there is that delicate balance an author has to strike with a sequel like that, especially in a genre thriving on continuous world building and character growth. The success of Iron Flame really underscores that for readers, the evolution of the core romance is vital. Prioritizing trust, communication, partnership over just repeating the initial passion, that's crucial for staying invested. Broadening our view, it shows that audiences in these big fantasy series aren't just looking for more of the same. They crave deeper emotional complexity, real growth within those established relationships, which raises an important question. How do authors manage to expand the world, bring in huge new challenges, without losing that intimate, character-driven focus that hooked readers in the first place? Iron Flame seems to have nailed it by skillfully weaving those big external threats and battles with the internal relationship dynamics, making both the plot and the personal stakes feel incredibly earned and resonant.
And now, at number 2, the book that truly became a cultural phenomenon in 2023, Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. This book was just everywhere, a literary sensation. The core idea, Violet Sorrengail, she was supposed to be a quiet scribe, right? But suddenly she's forced into this brutal war college to become a dragon rider, a super dangerous path. And there, of course, she meets Xaden Rierson. Commanding, dangerous, definitely seems to want her dead, but also maybe wants to kiss. You know the vibe.
Oh, we know the vibe.
The source says this book blew up for a reason. It packed in everything. Majestic dragons, that perfect enemies to lovers tension, a magic system that's both beautiful and deadly, and just perfectly paced romantic tension that makes you devour pages. It's got incredible world building that pulls you right in and found family elements that are genuinely moving. But what really sets Fourth Wing apart, according to the source and basically everyone online, is Violet herself. She's explicitly called not the typical fantasy heroine. She's small, she has a chronic illness. Initially, she seems totally unsuited for the brutal physical demands of the college. Yet, she is also incredibly smart, fiercely determined, and brave in ways that truly count, showing strength way beyond just muscle. Watching her grow and claim her power through the story, transforming from seemingly fragile to a total force that was described as absolutely inspiring. The spicy sweet rating for this one. Dragonfire, intense, overwhelming, and absolutely unforgettable, says it all. Perfect for anyone who loves dragons, military academy settings, and enemies to lovers done with electrifying precision and real emotional depth.
You know what's truly compelling there? It's how Violet's specific challenges make her more relatable, more inspiring, not less. It effectively flips the script on traditional fantasy tropes about physical power. In a genre often defined by outward strength, epic battles, Fourth Wing masterfully focuses on internal resilience, sharp intelligence, sheer grit. Which raises a really important question for writers and readers. How does centering a character's mental and emotional strength, rather than just physical ability, impact their appeal in a genre often tied to outward power? It suggests a growing appreciation among readers for characters who overcome adversity through wit, strategy, and just pure will. It demonstrates that true power comes in many forms, making their victories and their deeply earned love stories feel even more resonant and genuinely inspiring.
And finally, taking the coveted #1 spot on the Hook to Books list is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Okay, hold on. I can practically hear people thinking, wait a sec, that's not from 2023. And it's definitely not fantasy.
Exactly my first thought.
Right. And you're absolutely correct on both points. The source acknowledges this right up front. But they explain that this book, even though it came out earlier, just found its perfect audience this past year. Thanks largely to Book Talk's massive reach and incredible word-of-mouth buzz, it became what they call a romantasy-adjacent hit. Everyone just had to read it. The premise involves this reclusive Hollywood legend, Evelyn Hugo. She chooses a young, unknown journalist, Monique Grant, to finally tell her true life story. And it's this sprawling, captivating tale spanning decades of love in all its messy, complicated forms, public and deeply private. The central love story, the real heart of the book, is between Evelyn and Celia St. James. It's described as epic and tragic and hopeful all at once, a total emotional roller coaster across decades. The impact is undeniable. It made the source's host ugly cry, prompted deep thoughts on huge themes, love and sacrifice and what it means to live authentically, especially under the public eye. And here's the key connection. Despite zero dragons or magic, it has that same powerful escapist quality that makes romantasy so addictive. It's about larger-than-life characters living extraordinary lives and the love that makes it all worthwhile. A love that feels grand, timeless, much like the fantastical romances we've talked about.
That makes sense.
Right. Its rating is complex, vintage wine, sophisticated, layered, and absolutely unforgettable. A story to really savor. Perfect for fans of old Hollywood glamour, deeply moving LGBTQ plus romance, and those epic multi-decade stories that just grab your heart. Its inclusion here really expands our idea of what escapism and epic love can mean, even without any fantasy elements. So, what does this tell us about how communities like Hooked Books can influence what becomes a hit, completely outside of strict genre lines, and actually reshape popular taste?
Well, what's truly compelling here is exactly that. How a community's collective passion can propel a book way beyond its original genre or even publication date, making it a hit that just resonates with the current cultural moment. Evelyn Hugo shares that core emotional DNA with romantasy, doesn't it? It offers a grand, sweeping, high-stakes love story that feels epic. It transports you, even if that world is old Hollywood, not a fake court. Broadening our perspective, it suggests that the escapist quality we often link to romantasy might be less about literal magic and more about the feeling of being completely immersed in a story where love is transformative, enduring, larger than life. Which raises a fascinating question about the future of popular fiction. Does this blurring of genres point to a growing reader preference for emotionally rich, high-impact stories? Stories that prioritize that profound connection and character journey above sticking to genre rules, especially when amplified by these powerful online communities. It highlights that the appeal isn't just fantasy elements. It's the emotional intensity and the journey of extraordinary lives and loves that can resonate across any category.
Wow. This has been an absolutely incredible deep dive into some truly captivating stories that really shaped the romantasy scene in 2023. Looking back at this list, so diverse, right? From cozy academic fantasy to brutal sci-fi, even including a beloved contemporary romance and that powerful historical drama, the common thread is so clear, and it's genuinely beautiful. It's this unwavering belief that love can be magical, that it can completely transform us, and that sometimes the absolute best escape isn't just to another place, but into a story where anything, truly anything, feels possible for the human heart.
Exactly. And the explosion of romantasy this past year, if we broaden our perspective, really is a powerful reflection of a collective craving for that exact sense of magic and possibility in our often, well, ordinary lives. These books are like this potent reminder that love doesn't have to be mundane. It can be epic, world-changing, the kind of love legends are made of. And this huge craving has clearly shifted reader expectations for romance novels, as our source laid out so well. There's definitely a demand now for complex world building that feels real, not just wallpaper. An expectation for characters who truly grow and change through challenges. Readers absolutely want love stories that feel earned and meaningful, not just handed out. There's a clear preference for those compelling, morally gray book boyfriends, alluring in their complexity, and for fierce heroines who embody strength and resilience, inspiring us. We've seen so much love for slow burns, where the tension is just chef's kiss, and those heartwarming found family elements that offer belonging. And of course, that enduring desire for magic systems that make us want to live in these worlds forever. It all points to a deep need for truly immersive, transformative reading.
Yeah, it's abundantly clear this genre is way more than just a passing fad. It's a rapidly growing force in publishing. And what's fascinating here is how the source confidently predicts that 2024 is going to be even more incredible for romantasy. Publishers are definitely taking notice. You see it in the deals being made, the resources being allocated. Authors, in turn, are actively pushing boundaries creatively with world building, with character depth. They're bringing ever more innovative stories, and readers, as we've discussed, are consistently demanding more of these magical love stories. It creates this powerful feedback loop driving this exciting evolution. It's just a really vibrant and dynamic time to be a reader in this space. And there you have it, our deep dive into the top romantasy books of 2023 and the whole phenomenon surrounding it. We really hope this gave you, our dedicated listener, a valuable shortcut to feeling truly informed on this major literary trend. Hopefully highlighting some surprising facts, offering some different perspectives, and giving you a clearer sense of why these stories are hitting home so strongly right now.
Absolutely. And building on what the source showed us about Hooked Books being such an influential community and the sheer explosion of romantasy, here's a thought to maybe carry with you this week. How do these online communities, like the one we talked about, not just reflect, but actively shape literary trends? How do they shape what we, as a collective, define as epic or escapist in a story? And does this collective craving for magic in books maybe hint at a deeper, perhaps unmet need for wonder and, I don't know, enchantment in our everyday lives? And if so, how might stories continue to fulfill that vital human yearning for something extraordinary, something beyond the ordinary?
Ooh, that is a truly powerful thought to mull over long after this deep dive finishes. Thank you so much for joining us on this exploration today. Remember, the real power of stories isn't just about escaping to fantastic new worlds. It's also about how they can transform us, make us question things, and connect us to something bigger. Keep exploring, keep reading, and keep finding that magic in the stories that really move you.